Alright, so this is Anakar with WPGN on our public TechIt server, and this video is going to be continuing on a series of videos having to do with reactors and turbines. In the first video I showed you how just to make a passively cooled reactor. So now I'm going to teach you how to make an actively cooled reactor with a turbine. Right. So we're going to throw some yellorium into this turbine or this reactor here. And the only difference with your reactor is that you will need reactor coolant ports in it to make it actively cooled. And we should have actually put a couple over here as well. Where are they? Oh, there they are. Alright, so we'll pop a couple in here. Now you can put these anywhere as long as they have access to the inside. You put them on top, put them on the side, on the back, doesn't really matter. Now the thing about actively cooled reactors is that the reactor will not actually generate power itself. So once you go actively cooled, you can no longer use the reactor to draw power out of the reactor. Alright, so now we're going to go and build a turbine. Throw one together here. I'm having sinus issues today. So you're going to need a rotor bearing. You're going to need some turbine housing. You don't have to use glass. You can use housing if you want. I just like the way the glass looks. So you'll need, we'll take some turbine glass here. You will need rotor shafts. You'll need rotor shafts, and you'll need everything. So we'll start with this. You'll need rotor shafts and rotor blades. Alright, so we'll start with what we got here in build blocks, because that's pretty easy to do. So we'll just start it here. Now I'm going to make a very small one. It's not going to be huge, so it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we got a 5 by 5 cube. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to build it up by 5 as well. I don't even think you have to make it that tall. I'm going to, but I think you can actually make it shorter and it'll work. So we're just going to go 5 by 5 by 5. Just make it easy on ourselves. Easier to count. Easier to start off with. So we're going to do that. Now you'll notice, as I mentioned in the last video, when the multi-block is complete, it'll change texture like this has. So we're going to put some glass in here. Kind of fill in the bottom there. We'll put some glass on the sides. You'll need to put glass on the top as well. I recommend leaving one side open, or maybe both. That way when you go to put the rotor and the rotor blades in, you can kind of escape. So that's what we're going to do. Alright, so we'll glass in the front, except for where our controls and everything are going to be. And we'll glass in the back, except for the very middle piece, which needs to be this rotor bearing. So there we go. There's our rotor bearing. Now we're going to put in the rotor shafts, which I mentioned just a moment ago, and these need to come all the way out and touch the glass there. They need to go from one end to the other. And then you will need your glass blocks here, and these will have to surround at least the first part of this here. I might have to break that, yeah. So they're going to have to surround that part there to make what's called the coil. Now the coil is what you actually get your redstone flux protect. This is what you get your charge from. Okay, I think that's it. So we're gonna put in the rest of the glass. Oh, nope. I forgot the blades. Alright, so now, your energy generation actually comes from your blades, how efficient they are and whatnot. So the more blades you have, the more energy you're going to be able to generate, and the bigger, the bigger of a coil you have, and depending on what material you make it out of, will determine how much power you're going to get from your turbine. Alright, so that's done. We're going to glass this in. I'll fill up all the holes and everything, because it does have to be completely encased. There can't be any open parts to it. It doesn't really work that way. So we'll put all this stuff back, pull out the pieces that we need. Alright, so now we're going to need a turbine controller. Now this is just very basic. There's a controller, there's your power tap, you'll need some fluid ports. You will probably need at least 2 fluid ports. If not, then it's not going to work. So here's the front. We'll put our controller there. We'll put our power tap there, and we'll put a piece of glass on the other side just because there's nothing else to do. Alright, so now you notice how it changed texture once I put that last piece in. So we break it, goes back to being pretty plain. We put it back and it gets this line texture changes. That means that the turbine is complete and will function. So now here's what we need to do. We need to put some coolant ports in, or fluid ports in it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to knock out a couple of these, put those there. And actually I'm going to add 2 more up there so it's easier. And then we'll knock out these 2 and put these in there. And I'll change this real quick. That way I don't have to go around all the way around to the other side, because that's just a pain in the butt. So we're going to pop those in there. Replace these. Alright, so now we've got what looks like this. Here's our turbine, here's a reactor. Alright, so we got this. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to turn these to, some of these to output and some of these to output. And now you will need some, you can do it with fluid ducts. They don't move fluid very fast, but they do work. So we're just going to use those in example right now. So we'll connect all these up. Oops. Now, see, here's the thing with these, okay? What's coming out of the reactor will be steam, and that's what powers the turbine. What's going out of the turbine into the reactor is going to be water, which is the byproduct of the steam generation. So you have the water cooling the reactor, and the reactor powering the turbine with the steam. And the turbine will actually end up being what you're going to draw power from. So we got some fuel in there, we got our coolant in there, awesome sauce. Now my suggestion with this is, you dig out yourself a little, little 2x3 area or whatever, and you fill it with water. And I will explain to you why we do this right after I'm done. Get a couple aqueous accumulators. That way we can stick one there and stick one there. And these are self-powered. You don't have to power them. Okay, so now we get a couple more coolant ports. Stick them on this side. Leave them on intake. That way the reactor can pull water into it here. I'll get some more fluid ducts. And hook it up to these ports. Now the reason we do this is because you have to keep your reactor cool. So we give it a little, band-aid by pumping water directly into it. These are pretty slow, but you can, do more complicated things with transfer nodes later. Alright, so let's start our reactor up here. Now, see how that starts heating up and everything. the water is being used, turned into steam. Steam is going to be transferred over here. See that? Now let's turn our turbine on. Alright, so turbine spinning up. You see it generating RF per tick here, charging its internal reservoir. This, however, will not charge because this doesn't actually produce power anymore. It's transferring the steam to here so our turbine can function. Now this is a very, very small turbine. There are a few larger ones that have been built on the server, and I'd be more than happy to pop around after I'm done explaining this. Now this gauge here, this is depicting on how efficient your rotors are. So what you need to do is adjust the max flow until that reaches the very top of the green, so you have the most efficient turbine usage possible. Now with these small ones, you can actually get them up quite a high. 17 millibuckets pushes it up, but that burns up all of your steam really quickly. So what we want to do to get the most out of our turbine here is we want to bring this down until you see that gauge start to fall. And I think for this big of a turbine, or for the small of a turbine I should say, it's around 130 millibuckets that puts it in the sweet spot. So we'll keep dropping this, and we'll see how it does. Yeah, clickety click, 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 click. Now you see it's reaching the point where it's not very active, or it's not very efficient, I should say. So we're going to drop this, drop, 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 drop. Okay, 130. Alright, so we'll check back on that in a minute. Let's go check over here. Alright, our case heat's manageable. Small reactor, small turbine, so they're complementing each other fairly nicely. It's not going to overheat. It's producing some steam, and at the end of its steam dump, when it vents, yep, there you go, it's building some water. Steam will transfer to the turbine over here. Alright, so we're coming down. Good, 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 good. Okay. That should drop right into the green there. Now you want vent overflow only. That way you can vent your fluids back into the reactor here. Now there's a couple other ways of doing it. You could, vent all exhaust, dump all exhaust fluids. The exhaust fluid tank will not fill. Or you could close the vent, and that will preserve all of the exhaust fluid here. So say you want to push all the water back into your reactor, vent all exhaust. Okay, switch it back. Now your reactor's got plenty of water. There are other fluids you can use. Well, I think there are other fluids you can use. So this might only work with water. But alright, so see, now we're in the nice green area. We've got 800 and almost 870 per tick. Oh, that's going down. Okay. So we'll kick that up a couple notches. Our rotor is at 100% at almost 1,000 RPMs. So we're looking pretty good. So that's how actively cooled reactors work. Turbines can get very, very large. Let me pop around and show you some larger turbines that have been built. Well, I think the only large... Oh wait, no, I destroyed that. Okay, so we don't actually have any large turbines running on the server at the moment. So this is the only turbine that exists on the server, and it's for a test video. But yeah, so this is how turbines work with actively cooled reactors. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, then by all means hit me up on our site or in game. But yeah, that's pretty much how that works.